The American Beauty, also known as the Golden Coins game, played between Stefan Levitsky with the white pieces, a Russian chess master, and he played against Frank Marshall with the black pieces, and Frank Marshall is named after the Marshall attack in the Ruy Lopez. The game opened with d4 and e6, e4 and d5, so the French defense normal variation, but is in reverse. Now from here, we have knight to c3, all standard theory, and c5, opening the position, and e takes on d5 could have been a move, would be good. So we have knight to f3, knight to c6, and e takes on d5. E takes d5, and we have bishop to e2, just defending the knight, developing the bishop to a nice square, and knight to f6. Levitsky castles, and bishop to e7. Bishop to g5, and a kingside castle. D takes c5, and bishop to e6, so developing the bishop before retaking on c5. Knight to d4, shifting the knight's position, double attacking this bishop, and knight. So, bishop takes on c5, adding lots of pressure to this knight, and knight takes on e6. F takes on e6, so making a pawn chain, controlling the light squares, and the rook nicely defends this knight, so the queen is allowed to develop to a nice square. We have bishop to g4, and queen to d6. You can see in this position, although Marshall, with the black pieces, does not have the bishop pair, he has a very nice controlled centre. The light square is controlled with the knight and the pawns, and this knight controls the dark squares with the dark square bishop, and this queen is very strong in the centre, whilst the two rooks on the back rank nicely defended. But with white, none of the pawns are pushed really, they're not controlling anything. The knight is still on its preferred c3 square, and the bishop pair are quite strong, but this is the strong point on white, so this is winning as black in this position currently. Now we have bishop to h3, it's just shifting the position of the bishop, still holding this light square diagonal. Now we have rook a to e8, so the rook dominates the whole e file now, and these rooks are very strong together, partnering up on the f and e file. Now we have queen to d2, allowing the rooks to be connected, and we have bishop to b4, and bishop takes on f6, rook takes on f6, and rook a to d1. Queen to c5, adding more pressure to this knight. So now Levitsky leaves the knight undefended only by this pawn, the b pawn. So he simply plays queen to e2. Now we have bishop to c3. And now from here, this is where everything starts. So we started with b takes on c3. And queen takes on c3. But now Levitsky can play rook captures on d5. This rook cannot be captured because of the mate in 3. So like this. So the move that was played was knight to d4. But if this happens, e takes on d5. Simply queen to e8. Queen captures on e8 with check. The rook blocks on f8. Bishop to e6 with check. King moves. And now from here we will have queen takes on f8, which is a beautiful checkmate. So going back in the position, we had knight to d4. Now, the move, queen to h5, there could be some threats of moving the rook over to h6 and adding lots of pressure to the bishop with the queen and the rook. Rook e to f8, so now there is so much pressure on f2. Both the rooks are doubled up. Now we have rook to e5 and trying to go after this pawn, but first, Marshall goes after the queen and bishop with his rook, with rook to h6. The attack is on its way. After queen to g5, rook captures on h3, sacrificing the rook. The point is, this rook can't be captured because of knight to f3, a triple attack on the queen, king, and the rook. So this is a monstrous attack for Marshall. So going back, this bishop has to be sacrificed and it's allowed to be captured. Nothing can be done from here. Rook to c5 was tried, but the move queen to g3 destroys everything from here, sacrificing the queen. What happens if h takes on g3? Well, it's a mate in one. The knight lifts over to e2 and gives check. Mate, with the rook dominating the h file, and the knight gives that silent check. And what happens if the f pawn takes the queen? Well, like this. If the f pawn takes on g3, similar. Knight to e2 with check. Now, after the king moves to h1, we have the move rook takes on f1, which is a beautiful checkmate. So, in this position, when the move queen to g3 was given, offering up the queen, Stefan Levitsky resigned the game immediately because he saw what would happen after this move. But what happens if queen takes on g3? If this happens, then knight to e2 with check. Now after king to h1, you win the queen, but after knight takes on g3, you can't take with this pawn, you have to take with this pawn, but if you take with this pawn, then rook takes on f1 will be a checkmate. So, from here you're forced to give up the queen. So, king to g1, and now you'll have a move such as rook to e1, and now black has an amazing attack. So, Levitsky saw all these moves, so he immediately resigned. So hopefully you've enjoyed this video on the American Beauty, the Gold Coins game. Please remember to like this video and subscribe. Thanks for watching and see you soon.